I know a lot of people. I must know. I looked at my address book just before I started, and I worked out in my address book I have 1,800 entries. But I bet you out of those 1,800, out of all those people, there would only be one, which I would know, that has their own Wikipedia page. And that is Bart Bunting, right here for you, everyone. So, like, did you know you're on Wikipedia?
I don't know who did it.
One of your good friends, obviously. Bart I've known Bart for many years. He's been one of my idols. He does something which most sighted people would consider crazy, which is downhill skiing. Cannot drive a car, but can use a pair of skis. Now, if that doesn't frighten you, I don't know what will. I think it's exciting. And I'm looking forward to hearing his story today. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce Bart Bunting. Thank you very much.
All right. I like speaking at this kind of event because obviously it's close to my heart. I do a fair bit of corporate stuff and it's a little bit boring. Not really. This is interesting. I'm going to be pretty informal today. I'm going to, if there's time, take any questions at the end. It's a little bit tricky because I guess I'm talking to three groups of people, which I understand is people with a visual impairment transitioning into finishing high school or in high school, parents thereof, and other educators. I'm going to be a little bit biased and talk more towards the people with visual impairment. Now, I struggle with political correctness, right? It's always been a problem that I have. And I tend to just call myself blind. I don't know if that is controversial with people or not, but for me, that's just how I identify. I'm going to tell you a bit about me, which I don't think is that exciting, but you be the judge of that. And then I guess I want to focus in on aspects of my life where, well, no, aspects is wrong. Attitude. I think it comes down to attitude, both my attitude and people around me's attitude that's helped me be successful in life. So to start at the beginning, I was born with a visual impairment, optically challenged, blind, and I guess I didn't know that I couldn't see. Well, I did. I knew I couldn't see because I knew there was this thing that my brother and sister could do which let them find stuff that I couldn't find. And that was kind of annoying, but I just got good at training them to get stuff for me. But really, I didn't understand that that was odd, or odd, unusual, different to the majority of people for some time, really, until I went, I guess, to school. And even then, I went to St. Lucy's, which is a school for, at the time, was a school for blind kids rather than, I think it's multi-disabilities these days, and we tend to integrate from day one. When I found out that I was different, and not everybody, I mean, most other people could see, I think that came as a little bit of a shock for me. But my parents had always been really emphatic in just making me like one of the kids, you know, like if the job was to go and split wood, then I would go and split wood. If it was to take the rubbish out, then I would do it. And now that I'm a parent, which is a whole nother challenge, I look back at that and I think, gee, my parents had guts, because I don't know that it's necessarily the best idea to let your blind child like ride BMX bikes around the yard and up and down the road, you know, but it was lots of fun. And I did end up in the pool a few times. But they seemed to just take it in their stride, which I can only look back and be really grateful for, because I have seen other kids in sort of as I grew up and since, who have parents who I can only describe as, I'm sure we don't have any of them here, as overbearing or overprotective, and it has a detrimental effect on the child, because whilst you think you're protecting, or they think they're protecting them, it tends to just make them timid and unwilling to try things and not sure how to face situations. And I think growing up the way I did set me up for life in terms of being able to deal with whatever situation I was faced with. Now I'm going to jump around a bit. So I moved out of home at 17. After finishing high school, I went from St. Lucy's on to a Catholic high school, Oak Hill College in Castle Hill, if anyone knows it. It was a bit of a shock, really, actually. I'll tell you about that, because I left St. Lucy's and I was pretty cool at St. Lucy's because there was only about 3 of us there. All right, there was maybe 25. And being cool out of 25 people is not that hard, you know, like it's nothing you can really kind of claim a huge amount of fame for, but I thought I was pretty cool. And I went to this school with like 1,400 people and they all just thought I was a dickhead. Which, again, in hindsight, I think they were probably correct. I'm sad to say. But so it took me a while to go through the process of learning. I mean, I was academically okay. I mean, high school presented a lot of challenges academically in terms of access to materials and things like that, and educating teachers. But the biggest problem was my social adjustment. That took some time. I don't think it was until I left school that I was sort of friends with everybody, because I wasn't really used to that. So anyway, that's, I guess, a pro and con of integration versus non-integration and all of that. But there's lots of other pros that could be considered a con, I guess. It could have just been me. Getting back to where I was, so I left school and went on to uni. So I moved out of home at 17 to go to UTS. And that was a very exciting time. It was a very challenging time. I had never lived out of home before. I was like a little bit self-sufficient, but it wasn't that good. And it was now I had to cook for myself and, well, heat stuff up out of the freezer at first. But even that, and shopping. So I guess today you just go on Coles online and go click, 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 and some guy would bring it to your door. But back then that didn't exist, so you had to figure out strategies on how to deal with that. And to this day, my wife claims that my tendency to want to buy 10 of everything is somehow related to that. And because I'd be like, oh, well, maybe I'll just get 10, because then I won't have to go and get more. You never know when you might need, 10 rolls of foil. So for those of you who are going to make that transition, it's going to be scary, and it's going to suck, and it's going to be exciting, and it's going to be heaps of fun, and you're going to hate it, and you're going to love it. It's one of these things in life where I'm not going to stand up here and tell you everything's going to be easy, because it isn't. It's going to be a real, shouldn't say that, challenge. So that's normal. That's how it's going to be. And it's not that you can't do it. You've just got to figure out how you're going to do it. What do you want to achieve? So if you're going to move out, go to uni, some of the challenges you may or may not have to face are, how do you get food? How do you learn how to get around? In this modern day and age, what do you do when you navigate using your phone 99% of the time and your phone goes flat and you're somewhere weird? What do you do if the guy on the bus that promised you that he'd tell you where to get off doesn't? And then when you're on the bus back in the other direction and that guy promises you and he doesn't, and you're screwed. There's always a way out of it. You've just got to be calm. I remember times I was in the city. I didn't know where I was. I kind of went, well, it feels like the sun's coming from that direction, so that must be roughly west, so I want to go that, yeah, it could be this way, and just kept going. And I think it's like the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Don't panic. That's the key message. Like, the worst thing you can do is get stressed if you're in a difficult situation, because I can promise you, you will at some point, I can't tell you what it will be or when it will be, but you will be in a difficult situation that you feel really uncomfortable with, and you probably don't know how to deal with it. But that's okay. just take a deep breath, have a think about it, and you'll be fine. Like, seriously, there's always a way around things. And this is some of the like not very exciting things about being blind, but you know, at times it sucks. But it's not that bad. You can deal with it. And every time you develop a strategy, just if you want to do something, just think, how am I going to do it? Like, I was backpacking by myself when I was at uni, and I went up north, and I knew that I wanted to swim, but I had this dilemma. I thought, well, that's good. I can get to the beach, I can put my towel down, and I can go for a swim, and all that's going to work just fine. The problem's going to be when I get out of the water and think, okay, cool, where's my towel? Like, that was the biggest thing that I could see was a problem. So I just figured out how to get this beeper thing with a really loud siren on one end and a waterproof thing that I put under my belt, and off I went and swim and took the thing out, pushed the button, some huge siren went off, probably scared the crap out of some poor guy sunbaking on his towel, you know, like, but I found mine. So there's all sorts of ways around it. There's always a way, you know, it mightn't be obvious. So then, as I said, uni was hard in that respect. Like, the transition wasn't easy, but I tell you what, it was one of the hardest things I did, but it's also one of the most fun things I did, just generally, whether it be uni or TAFE or just moving out of home to get away from your parents because they annoy you. Like, when you're living by yourself, you're going to face challenges, but the freedom and the feeling of accomplishment when you figure out how to do these things that maybe you think you couldn't do, and you do them, it's going to be challenging but exhilarating at the same time. The thing is, just never give up, never feel like you can't do it, and if you feel like you can't do it, just take a step back and think, how am I going to do it? What do I need, or what do I need to figure out? And with respect to, I can really only speak for uni because I haven't been through any of the other education like systems, but they're all very similar in their own way. With respect to materials, I had a lot of trouble getting stuff. Like, you've got to remember, this was in the 90s when internet was just coming into vogue, and the idea of something other than uni notes written on slides and photocopied and handed out each lecture was quite unusual to lecturers. And if you asked for something in an electronic format, they thought that was all very much too hard. So the good thing in this era is that so much of that is accessible. You won't have to wait for your books to be translated into Braille or electronic format or whatever, or at least it's unlikely that you need to. And even if you can't get the exact book, you'll be able to get 10 others on the same subject. So that's good. And OCR's come a long way. There's lots and lots of, and I'm sure people here have talked to you about all the services that are available. So there's many things you can tap into. It's just about finding what they are and tapping into them, and making the most of what other people are offering. So that was uni. I did a lot of things at uni. I'll run you through a few of them quickly, the ones I can talk about. I do have a very interesting recollection of being on the intersection of Mountain Street and Broadway in an Elvis suit on rollerblades at some late night hour at the lights crossing over in front of the traffic. You know, I did wait for the lights to change, but I don't think they were quite sure what to make of the man tapping along on rollerblades with his cane in an Elvis suit. I got home, I'm not sure how, and I didn't injure myself, so that was good. At some point I took it into my head to abseil off the university building just because I could and I had the gear. That was fun. We kept a ferret. Again, I'm not entirely sure why we did, but the cleaner used to refer to it as that little creature. I'm not sure what the uni housing people thought, or if they knew or cared. There were many things we did that we probably shouldn't have done, and that's part of growing up, isn't it? So enjoy whatever you're going on to. Be excited about it, but don't be... be afraid, right? Be afraid, but do it anyway. It's like when I ski. I mean, I'm going to jump again, but when I stand at the top of a downhill course, the downhill is like the ski race. There's all different types of events, but the downhill is like the one where you just go as fast as you can, pretty much, and you hardly turn much at all. And I stand in the gate. Well, actually, it starts before I stand in the gate, because it starts when I'm at the top of the course, knowing that I'm going to do it. And you're sort of in the freezing cold, trying to warm up. It's got people there, and you're thinking, how can I not do this? And then you realise that, like, you're representing your country, and really, you can't just say, anyway, look, I thought it sounded like a good idea, but I've changed my mind. I'm not going to do it today. Maybe next time. Yeah, so you don't really have a choice once you think about that and you realise actually you can't do that. So you're standing there in the cold, getting ready, and usually there's only a couple of people go in front of me because of the B1 category goes first. But then you're there, and then you'll hear something like course hold, and you know that course hold means one thing. It means that the guy in front of you has crashed. So that's always like good. You think, excellent, excellent. Course hold, it just means just like hold on a minute while we scrape him off the track, kind of thing. Or whatever they need to do, you know. Yeah, it could be any sort of, depending on how bad it is. It's usually not that bad, but it could be a couple of minutes, could be 10 minutes. And then they'll say 30 seconds, and that means basically in 30 seconds you've got to go. So then you're there standing in the gate, and they'll go 10 seconds, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the whole time you're just crapping your pants, right? Because you're just thinking, why am I doing this? This sucks. This is so stupid. Like, it's only... that's why there's not that many blind skiers, I think. Most of them are sensible. Then you do it. Because as I said, like, you couldn't figure a way not to do it. And then you're actually doing it. And when you're doing it, all that goes out the window and you're just doing it. And all the fear goes away and you're just skiing as hard as you can, and then it's over in about 3 minutes, 4 minutes, and then you can go, oh man, I'm never doing that again until next time. So I love it. I love the skiing. But I started skiing almost by accident, really. It was a come and try camp. It was run by Disabled Winter Sports Australia in Perisher, I think, at the time, in 98. And my good friend who became my guide, his sister was running this camp. And of course she said, oh, you guys should come along, because we'd done all sorts of other crazy things like caving and canyoning and that together. And she said, you should do it, you'll love it. I'm like, I don't know about that. Like, you know, it doesn't sound like that much fun. I think, she's like, no, you've got to come. So we did. And it turned out that skiing was a lot of fun. And just the sheer stupidity I think I liked about it. Like, and no one could tell us. So we're like, so all right, we want to ski, and like I can't see. And they're like, oh, you need a guide. Like, yes, that's obvious. Of course I need a guide, but how do you do it? They're like, oh, well, you get him to guide you, of course. Well, how do you do that? Well, surely he should just, like, shout to you and it'll work just fine. Other people do it. So we had nobody that could actually tell us how to do it. And it's a lot more complicated than at first it seems, and just even in terms of the right type of microphone, a loudspeaker, and what calls to use, and it just goes on and on in complexity. And we went through many iterations before we got to a point where we had a system that worked, and we worked as a team and all of that. And it started out though at that camp, and then we sort of loved it. Then there was opportunity to go on and do more, to go to Canada and train, which sounded like too much fun to not try. And we did that, and somehow it turned out that we were good at it after we figured out how you did it. And I mean, it is strangely simple and strangely complicated, because it's just like straight, 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 and left, 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 and right, 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 and stop. But there's many nuances to it, and many, many ways to say left and right that you develop between you over the time. So we went from that and then on to the World Championships in Switzerland in 2000, where we won a few medals there. I think we won the downhill at that event and something else that I can't remember, GS I think. And then we went from that, like we had many sort of smaller competitions in between, and then we went on to the Paralympics in Salt Lake, which I guess was, that season was really, in 2002 was our best. We took out the overall World Cup points for that year, and we got 2 gold and a silver at Salt Lake. So that was awesome. I mean, that's sort of been one of the highlights of my sporting career, and I would highly recommend it to any of you that are stupid enough to give it a go. It's not for the faint-hearted. I've been knocked out by trees, run into things, knocked many people over, been skied into by people. Seem to think it's a wonderful idea too to ski between the guide, and the blind skier, which is hairy at times. But anyway, we've had a whole heap of fun, travelled around, done a whole heap of good things, and won some medals. But if you stopped and thought about it, you would never do it. If you stopped and thought, gee, I wonder how I could hurt myself doing that. Oh, that sounds like it's a bit dangerous, don't you think? Well, no, I don't think blind people should do that. Because it is a bit stupid. It's not that dangerous. Well, it is a bit dangerous, but not a lot dangerous if you're safe about it. But logically, it doesn't make sense. But nor does it make sense for people to do a lot of things that they do. And I've got to tell you this one. This is the funny one. It's not even that related, but I'll tell you anyway because I'll forget to tell you otherwise. Now that I've moved out of Sydney because I've got children and I got sick of the city, so we decided it would be a wonderful idea to buy some land out in the country, which we've done. And now we're figuring out, well, I'm figuring out how you do these sort of things when you can't see, which is proving quite challenging. But it did lead me to have a fun conversation with the guy in Bunnings because I needed a chainsaw to cut up some wood. So I went into Bunnings and I said, yes, I'd like a chainsaw. It's just me and the dog. He said, oh, yes. I said, well, don't you think every blind man should own a chainsaw? I think that's pretty obvious, isn't it? He says, yes, I guess so. Needless to say, I've got my chainsaw. I've got 2 now. Because the first one I bought wasn't big enough. I had to get a bigger one. But it's all fun and games until someone loses a leg, I guess. But so far, so good. But stereotypically, people would think blind people shouldn't use chainsaws. And to some extent, I agree. Like, I probably won't be, like, felling large trees, you know, like, because I can't kind of see which way it's leaning and going to fall. So I do draw the line. Like, I'm not entirely reckless, you know. But I don't see why there's any reason that a blind person can't chop up logs. It's not that hard. Yeah, there is a certain amount of care that you need to take, and probably more so than somebody who can see, but it's perfectly doable. I mean, I've been doing it for some months now. So, I think this is kind of the crux of my talk in a way. Like, there is the things that people think you can't do. It's not obvious that to them that it's perfectly possible, and it may not be obvious to you until you stop and think about it, how you're going to achieve it. And how you achieve it mightn't be how everybody else achieves something, but it's totally doable. And, you know, like, whilst I wouldn't encourage people to, like, fixate their life dream on becoming, like, a long-haul truck driver or something like that, because we all know that job's going to be extinct in 10 years anyway. I think pretty much whatever you want to achieve, within reason, you know, where it's not obviously, like, ludicrous, it's doable. And if you look around on the internet, you'll see blind people that have done everything. There's some guy I want to get in touch with that's a beekeeper. I want to get some bees. I'm a bit scared of it, but I figure if he can do it, why can't I be a blind beekeeper? I only want to keep some bees. He's got hundreds of hives. I only want like 2. You know, I think I'm only mildly allergic to bees. So I need some tips, you know. But again, it's all about having a laugh along the way, though, too. Like, don't take yourself or anybody else too seriously. And if you do, I think you just set yourself up for being sad, you know. Some things will work out, some things won't. Develop a sense of patience, like, because God knows you're going to need it from time to time. I think that's one thing I've really, because I can't see, you just have to be patient. And some things I'm really impatient at, but some things you just have to be accepting, like, yeah, I can't change it. And, like, if I could see, like that would be really easy, but I can't, and it isn't. And so if you can get somebody else to do it from time to time, like that's okay as well. Don't be like, I've seen people or come across people that are adamant that they are I don't know what you want to call it, a liberated blind person, and they can do everything, and they intend to do it all themselves, and that will prove somehow something that I'm not sure what it is. I've found that whilst maybe possible, it's a way that leads to frustration. Like, realize what you're good at, realize what other people are good at, and share the load. Like, prove to yourself if you really need to that you can do it once and then stop, because it's just not worth it, you know? Like, working, I've worked in the IT industry and satellite communications probably for the last 20 years, and there's some stuff that I'm just really crap at. Now, some of it is because literally I can't see graphs, right? That I'm not good at reading graphs and getting them in any way I can use. It's not possible. So I don't do that. I get somebody else to do that, and I do other things. And you can always find that there's stuff that you can do better than other people, and stuff that by just virtue of having a set of eyes, it makes sense to get them to do. And it all balances out in the end, you know, you just got to find the creative solution to problems. So I would just encourage everybody to like give it a go. Don't, as I said, take yourself too seriously, because people have said to me, oh, do you worry about being blind? And look, of course I do from time to time. Like, it's hard not to when you just think, you know, I'd love to just jump in a car, go down there, grab that thing I need from Bunnings, but instead I've got to convince my wife, hey, hon, we need to go to Bunnings. What do we need to go to Bunnings for? I hate Bunnings. You probably want to go to the pipe aisle. And we go to Bunnings, and then, like, I'm trying to find it, and if I need something, like a fitting for something, she'll be like, I can't find it, there's too many. And she'll go, stay there. And she'll run off, and I can hear her down the aisle. She goes, my husband's blind, he wants something, I don't know anything about it, can you help? All right. And then she'll go, here's a man, he'll help you. And I'm like, because I know exactly what I want. You know, I go, I want a, like, you know, 25mm elbow joint in this. And he'll be like, oh yeah, sure, here it is. Like, but she's worked out that it's totally inefficient for her to try and help me. She's found a solution, which is just to drag some Bunnings guy by the ear to help me. I mean, and life's like that. Like, realize what you're not good at and find a way around it, albeit a little bit embarrassing for me. I think they all, before we left Sydney, we were told by the Bunnings man, you're in my top 3 customers. Now, I never found out who the other 2 were, but apparently I was in his top 3 customers, which is a strange accolade to receive from them. But it was kind of good. But, I mean, going back to what I've said, so I've told you that you can worry about stuff, but don't do it incessantly. Because somebody said to me once, they said, do you worry about it? Do you worry about being blind? And I thought about it for a while, and I said, no. So I don't, because if it would help, I would sit around and worry all day, but as it's going to make no difference, it's just a waste of energy. I'd rather worry about solving the problems that I can solve to get on with stuff. And that's really what I feel is sometimes missing, you know. People get, and I know it's hard, like I'm not trying to say it's all going to be easy, because it ain't. It's not all easy, but it's not all that bad either. And there's always a solution that you can find, and sometimes it's going to be a compromise. It's not going to be as perfect as you dreamed that it could be, but you can get there. And that's the important thing. Like, I've done so many stupid things, so many fun things, so many things, as I said, that you probably shouldn't do if you can't see, but do them anyway. If someone tells you you can't do it, make your own assessment. Don't do things just to be like obstinate, but if you really want to do it, and everyone's saying it's dangerous, we'll stop and think, maybe they're right, maybe it is dangerous. But if it is dangerous, how can I take that danger and mitigate it to a point where it's acceptable for me to be able to do it? And maybe it's a bit more risky for me to do it than someone who can see. But, I mean, I use circular saws, I use all sorts of power tools that people at first glance probably think, well, you really shouldn't do that. And I do it at night, which freaks them out even more, in the dark. There's nothing more off-putting than a man chainsawing in the pitch black. I mean, I think they see that as somehow more dangerous. Because, of course, you can't see while you're doing it. Which, I didn't quite understand that, but it seems to upset them more if you do it at night. So if you really want to upset your neighbours, just do something like mow the lawn at night, you know. They'll find it odd yet worrying. I know it doesn't make sense, but it's true. How are we going for time, Matt? 5 minutes. I mean, 5 minutes and questions, or 5 minutes full stop?
5 minutes and questions, or 10 minutes, or whatever you want.
Okay. No, I just...
You've got 8 minutes total. Allocate as well.
Oh, good, okay. No, 8 minutes. Geez, that's 8 minutes longer than I catered for. What else can I tell you? So I've really spoken to the people who can't see, I mean, obviously I understand that there's a huge range of variations of can't see and degrees, and mine's pretty can't see, but some people may be able to see more. Parents, just push your children, but only to a point, but treat them as though they're just the same as everybody else. And I'm not saying you're not doing that, but if you're not doing that, start doing it. It's really important, and it makes a big difference. I don't know how to tell you this, because I don't know how my parents did it, but I don't know what they must have done. They must have just sucked up their fear or something, because I was climbing trees and falling out of trees and making billy carts and falling off billy carts. I was even jumping BMX bikes, and I don't know how they kind of didn't freak out, because I didn't think, whenever they did freak out, I was, don't be stupid when I'm a kid, but that's what kids do. Looking back from a more mature perspective, I totally get it. I was a bit I don't know how they did it, but if you can do it, because it's important. Working is another aspect that people are going to face issues with. Yeah, it's going to be hard to get a job relative to people who can see, because they've got cars and more choice of what they can do, and they can fly planes and stuff, but you'll be right. Find a niche, find something you're passionate about, and keep at it. Don't give up. That's the key thing. I could just keep going regaling silly stories, but I think I'd like to just close my sort of part of the talk on just saying that my message is pretty clear. It's, you can do whatever you want, temper it with a little bit of reason. Don't feel bad if you feel bad, right? It's okay to feel like crap every now and then, because everyone does, and you've got a reason to, but don't feel sorry for yourself for too long. Don't get into a habit of oh, poor me, the world sucks. Because look, the world sucks and then you die, isn't that what they say? But that's how it is. You're not going to change that. So just get on with it, and enjoy it, because there's heaps of enjoyment to have out there as well. And laugh at everything, or at least as much as you can, because there's always a funny side to stuff. I'm sure that guy in Bunnings with the chainsaw question went home and went, "Oh my God, you never believe there's this blind man that came and bought a chainsaw off me today. What the hell?" So keep laughing. I'd like to take any questions, serious, funny, whatever. I'm happy to take any. No questions. Jeez, that's not good. Yeah, so I'm not competing at the moment, but definitely the reason that we were so successful is that we kept a consistent guide. Now, that's not essential, but it will make a difference if you can do it. I realise it's not always possible, but the more you can work as a team, the better your outcome will be, especially at high competition level. For recreation skiing, it is important, but not so. All right, obviously nothing else.
I just want to point out one thing, Dave,
Because we have such a percentage of people that have actually low vision or can't see, I just want to point out that Bart is not using cue cards, but is in fact using a... what are you using? Can you explain?
No, I didn't have anything on. It's just it's a
well, he's listening to music. He's listening to music. Yeah, no. So, but I've seen him do this a few times. I've seen him use an iPhone and sort of pay through notes. That's
I would, yeah. I wasn't. I was going to check the time, but I forgot what time we started. That's why I asked you.
Well, there you go.
So I found an easier way to do it.
Look, everyone, let's give a big round of applause to Bart. It's a great story.